Chapter 1: The Broken Birthday Promise. After being a doormat for my fiancé for 7 years, on the brink of death, I decided I was done. I blocked him on everything and walked away for good. To bring things to a proper close, I posted a unilateral announcement on my social media feed. Our stars are crossed. The engagement is off. The caption for the photo read, "Goodbye and good riddance." Once I let go, we would never see each other again in this lifetime. Later, I heard that Ethan Knight, the crown prince of the Knight family who never believed in fate, knelt before his beloved wife's memorial tablet for days on end, begging for me to appear in his dreams. It was already 1 in the morning by the time I finished my last surgery. After changing out of my white coat, I opened my phone, holding on to a sliver of hope. As expected, among the dozens of messages, not a single one was from Ethan Knight. I habitually opened our chat window. "Ethan, I have several surgeries today. You're on your own for dinner." "Ethan, are you home yet?" "Ethan, I'm craving cake from that place at the entrance to our neighborhood. Could you grab a small slice for me on your way home?" Scrolling up, the screen was filled with messages sent by me. Occasionally, his replies were sprinkled in, "K." Today, I didn't even merit a period. I always told myself he was swamped after just taking over the company. He wouldn't have time for me, just like when I was busy in surgery. But when my best friend received my reply, she groggily turned on the light to wish me a happy birthday again. I guess that's the difference between being important and not. After the video call, I drove to the building of Ethan's company. The lights in the CEO's office were still on. He really was busy, which is why he hadn't replied. After hesitating for a long time, I didn't go up to see him. Once, I had rushed to his company for something urgent. The young receptionist, knowing I was his fiancé, brought me upstairs without an announcement. He didn't scold me. He simply fired her right in front of me. To this day, I can still see the desperate tears of the girl who was fired because of me. I humbly explained and begged him not to take his anger out on an innocent person because of me. He rescinded the termination. "This is the first and last time. Don't let it happen again." I stood downstairs from his company, not even daring to step into the lobby. It wasn't until a delivery guy walked past me with a bouquet of sunflowers and an exquisite cake box that I saw Ethan. He personally took the flowers and cake and handed them to the young woman behind him. He affectionately ruffled her hair and smiled as they spoke for a long time. The scent of durian cake wafted into my nose. When I smelled it, I even felt a flicker of joy. I thought it was for me. I thought he remembered that yesterday was my birthday. I thought he knew I loved sunflowers. Turns out I was overthinking it. But he clearly hated the smell of durian, hated when I ate it. For his sake, I had given it up. Ethan Knight was never short of women. This was the first time I had ever seen him compromise for someone else. Ethan Knight, I don't know where the courage came from, but I pushed open the glass door and chased after the two of them as they were about to enter the elevator. I didn't dare look at Ethan, just smiled at the girl. She wore a white slip dress under a black blazer, looking both innocent and sexy. Her French-style wavy hair was casually draped over her shoulders, making her look like a goddess. So, this was his type. The girl looked a bit awkward under my gaze and tried to hide the flowers and cake behind her back. Ethan's stare felt like 1,000 cuts. He remained silent for a long moment until the girl tried to hide the items. "What are you doing here?" A dense pain spread through my chest. It hurt so much I wanted to grill him. "Why haven't you answered my messages in 3 days? Who is this girl? Why did you buy her flowers and cake? Why do you buy her durian cake when you hate the smell? Why did you forget your promise to celebrate my birthday with me? Why?" Feeling the metallic taste of blood in my throat, I had to swallow all my questions. Finally, I asked softly, "Ethan, when will you be done with work?" "Should I wait for you?" The elevator chimed, and the girl stepped inside first. She held the open button, looking at Ethan expectantly. "Don't wait for me," he replied indifferently as he stepped into the elevator. I only came back to my senses after the elevator doors closed and it ascended to the top floor. Chapter 2: The early autumn night was a bit chilly. I drove home. The cake shop at the entrance of our neighborhood was already closed. Ethan definitely wasn't coming home tonight. I ordered myself a durian crepe cake. As I lit the candle, I remembered that he had never once celebrated a birthday with me, never once said, "Happy birthday," and never given me a birthday gift. I blew out the candle without making a wish. I'm an orphan. I don't have a birth date. One day, Ethan appeared like a god from the heavens and saved me. The day he walked into my life, I was reborn. That day became my birthday. As the durian cake melted in my mouth, I couldn't help but remember my friend's exasperated words. Isabel, did you get bit by a dog and forget your rabies shot? Why do you have to be such a doormat? Are all the other men in the world dead? But when I finally managed to turn Ethan into my fiancé, they cheered me on. You're something else, Isabel Yates. Other doormats end up with nothing, but you managed to snag the new crown prince your persistence paid off. The truth is, when I was chasing him, I didn't know he would become the Knight family's crown prince. He was just the hero who saved me from thugs in a dark alley. Under the dim light, he coldly threw his school jacket over me, averting his eyes from my tattered clothes. Do you want me to walk you home? I nodded and then shook my head in shame. I didn't want him to know my home was an orphanage. Perhaps that night was Ethan Knight's greatest regret. If he hadn't saved me, he wouldn't have been stuck with me. When I woke up the next morning, Ethan had just returned. He showered and changed into casual clothes. Let's go. I was confused. Where? Didn't you want cake? A flicker of joy sparked in my numb heart. Did he remember that yesterday was my birthday? I pursed my lips and got into his car. He rarely tried to appease me. If he did, it meant he was in a good mood. Was it because of the girl from last night? The car was terrifyingly silent on the way. I didn't dare to ask him. I was afraid of losing even this belated gift. It wasn't that I was greedy. It was just that something from him was different. The car stopped at a newly opened, popular cake shop. One glance was all it took for me to recognize it as the place where he'd bought the cake for that girl yesterday. The logo was identical. So, he did know how to put in the effort to please a woman. When he saw the long line outside the shop, the impatience in his eyes grew more obvious. Right, he had a delivery service by it yesterday. He hadn't expected it to be this popular. I knew my place. There are too many people. Let's go, but he started looking for a parking spot. Go on, I'll wait for you. Those words, I'll wait for you, held a magical power over me. It was the first time he had ever said them to me. Like a joyful bird, I happily ran to the back of the line. I kept looking back, and as long as I could confirm his car was there waiting, my smile grew wider. I even secretly wished the line was longer. That way, he would wait for me longer. My heart filled with joy, I took the packaged cake. But when I looked back again, I only caught a glimpse of the familiar rear of his car disappearing into traffic. He was gone. He left without a word. I called him, but the line was busy. I sent a text, but there was no reply. Like an abandoned puppy, I squatted on the curb, bitterly eating the mango cake. It was a blessing that he had even brought me here to buy cake. How could I be so thoughtless as to buy his most hated flavor, durian? I just bought his favorite mango. And I am allergic to mangoes. Chapter 3, it wasn't until my skin started to itch uncomfortably that I realized what I had done. I threw the cake in the trash and bought some allergy medication. The feeling of being Ethan's doormat was just like the discomfort spreading over my body. He was an orphan just like me, but he was luckier. He was adopted. It seemed he wasn't very happy though. I've always been perceptive, able to sense others' emotions well. He excelled in his studies but was like a lone wolf, never getting close to anyone. When he once again ranked first in our year but looked desolate, I wrote him my first letter. I waited for him on the roof of the school building until it got dark, but he never came. I didn't give up. I thought I could, just as he had saved me, slightly smooth the sorrow between his brows. I cornered him at the entrance to the men's restroom. Why didn't you show up? He looked at me like I was crazy and replied coldly, I don't like you. I didn't understand. I just wanted to be friends with him, but he said he didn't like me. Why? Your grades are terrible. An insult, a complete insult. Did you need good grades to be his friend? Unwilling to admit defeat, I found my motivation. I stopped drifting aimlessly through my days. My grades soared from the bottom of the class to the top 10. I thought I was finally qualified to be his friend. When he tore up my 100th letter in front of me and threw it in the trash, I got angry. What's that supposed to mean? He snapped at me irritably. It means what it says. I don't like you. Amidst the mocking laughter of our classmates, I finally understood that he had mistaken my letters for love letters. Realizing my mistake too late, I chased after him to explain and found a medical diagnosis report he had dropped. No wonder he was so aggressive. He was sick. I hid the report and studied hard to get into medical school. When I ran into him again at the Capital Medical University, I didn't mention a word about the past. Ethan Knight, what a coincidence. This time, he wasn't impatient or angry, just said flatly, "Hello." It was like he didn't remember me at all. The discomfort on my skin gradually subsided, and I took a taxi home alone. Sitting on the sofa, hugging my knees, I kept telling myself, "Don't be sad, he must have had an emergency." Only by comforting myself, this way could my aching heart feel a little better. I can't remember when I started to like him. Maybe it was in that dark alley. I had belatedly thought it was just the loneliness of two similar souls attracting each other. By the time I was deeply in love, I had already grown accustomed to being a persistent doormat. I had the night shift that evening, so I forced myself not to overthink things. After I got out of surgery, I saw over a dozen missed calls. My heart suddenly clenched into a knot. Ethan had never called me on his own initiative. Let alone, over a dozen times, something must have happened to him. Bad thoughts raced through my mind as I shakily dialed his number back. I was too scared to breathe. As expected, the voice on the other end was not his. "Is this Belle? This is Tessa. I had some of that durian cake yesterday, and this morning I've been throwing up and have diarrhea. I was just going to ask Mr. Knight if he felt unwell after eating it, but he brought me straight to the hospital. The hospital said it might be food poisoning, so Mr. Knight is causing a scene. Could you try to talk to him?" The sound of things smashing in the background was extremely jarring. The caller was the girl who had received the flowers and cake from him last night. I let out a self-deprecating laugh but still agreed. "Okay, I'll be right there." I hastily changed out of my scrubs and asked a colleague to cover my shift. Before I left, I didn't forget to grab a first aid kit, afraid he might be hurt. I cursed myself for being such a damn doormat while running 3 red lights on my way to the cake shop. Chapter 4. The scene was far more chaotic than I had imagined. The cake shop was completely wrecked, but Ethan still wasn't satisfied. A shoddy place like this should be shut down for good. Under the pleading gazes of Tessa and the owner, I reached out with a trembling heart to grab his hand. When he saw it was me, he grew even more impatient and flung my hand away. He used too much force. I was thrown onto a patch of cream on the floor, and he watched coldly as I slipped and fell, ending up a complete mess. "Who told you to come mind your own business?" Sticky cream smeared my hands, my clothes, my hair, and my heart. The pain in my tailbone was excruciating, but it was nothing compared to the pain in my chest. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I stubbornly refused to let them fall. Tessa felt sick after eating the cake, and he could make a shameless scene for her. But he didn't ask me if I had eaten any cake, if I felt sick. He just questioned why I was meddling. He roughly pulled me up and took me home. He didn't leave with Tessa. Even though he was rough with me, my foolish heart started to race and flowers bloomed in my chest. Fortunately, it was late when the scene happened, so there weren't many people in the cake shop. But he was the Knight family's crown prince. His every move was watched. I could imagine the media storm that would erupt the next day. And what an awkward position I, his fiancé, would be in. This wasn't the first time he had embarrassed me, but it was the most humiliating. I just didn't expect that it could get even worse. Ethan disdainfully ran a warm bath for me. "Clean yourself up, you're disgusting." He called me disgusting. But after I got into bed, he leaned in to kiss me. I pushed him away, looking directly into his eyes. "Do you know what yesterday was?" He frowned, his lips moving to my earlobe. He didn't remember. Fine, if he didn't remember, he didn't remember. It wasn't my real birthday anyway. He was the one who had given the date its special meaning. I swallowed the bitterness in my heart. As he pressed down on me, the pain in my tailbone made me cry out involuntarily. To his ears, it sounded like a moan of pleasure. "Isabel, you really are a cheap, desperate slut." Tears streamed silently down my face as he continued, heedless of my pain. I felt like I was back in that deep, dark alley again. "Ethan, if you don't like me, why are you doing this?" "Fine, I'll consider this as repaying you for saving my life back then." My first time was brutally rough. He was like a wild beast, venting all his pent-up anger and dissatisfaction. At the height of passion, I whispered, "Ethan, have you ever liked me, even for a second?" His panting was the only answer I received. I didn't know if that counted as an answer. I held him tighter. No matter what, he was the wall I was destined to crash into. Only when I was broken and bleeding would I turn back. At least I had slept with the man I had loved for years. It wasn't a total loss. I tried to enjoy the process, but I couldn't feel a trace of pleasure. When I woke up, my embarrassing fall hadn't made the news. Instead, the Knight family's crown prince making a stand for love was the top trending topic. The media relentlessly published photos of him and Tessa at various trendy spots. Looking at the dates on the photos, I realized that during the days he hadn't replied to my messages, he had been with Tessa. Before, he had suppressed any media exposure. Now, he was tacitly approving the rumors about him and Tessa, so the media pounced. Perhaps out of guilt, or to make up for last night, I received a jade bracelet from him, but it was shabby compared to the emerald one on Tessa's wrist. That was the one he had won for Tessa at a charity auction with a sky-high bid. At the time, the media had speculated that it was a gift for his fiancé. Looking at the picture of the emerald bracelet on Tessa's wrist, I smiled and coughed up a mouthful of blood. The crimson in my palm was a reminder that it was time to leave. Chapter 5. The heartless banquet. After finishing all my scheduled surgeries, I submitted my resignation to the director. Director Sullivan looked at me with a mix of pity and regret. "You're leaving without clearing things up with him. Won't you have regrets?" Regrets. The only thing missing between us was a marriage certificate. For me, that was more than enough. Once, when I confessed to him with my last shred of hope, I knew he wouldn't respond. "Ethan Knight, I like you. The fact that I like you has nothing to do with you. It's just, I like you." After sending the message, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, ready to follow my mentor abroad for further studies. The plane was about to take off. He replied to my message, "Will you be my fiancé?" Those were words I never even dared to dream of. I even wondered if it was a prank because he knew I was leaving, or maybe a bet with someone, or even if he had sent it to the wrong person. But then he called me. "Where are you? I'll come pick you up." When he showed up at the airport to get me, I felt like I was floating on a cloud, unable to touch the ground. My mentor had to leave for Germany alone. Later, I found out. He was the illegitimate son of the Knight family. The original Knight heir had died in an accident, and the head of the family, seeing Ethan's potential, brought him back to inherit the family business. He hated the Knight family for trying to eliminate him and his mother years ago. He didn't want to accept an arranged marriage, so he chose me, an orphan of humble origins, as his declaration of war. Back when he bid on the emerald bracelet, he had told the media himself, "This is for my wife." The jade bracelet on Tessa's wrist was a constant reminder of what a joke I, the fiancé, was. She was the wife. So what was I? The other woman? People online were saying that I was the third party standing in the way of his and Tessa's love. It was only then that I learned Tessa was the marriage partner his family had arranged for him. I repeatedly looked at their intimate photos, my heart aching so much I could barely breathe. If he was destined to marry Tessa, why did he have to lead me on? Was it out of pity for my devotion? The pain in my abdomen grew more pronounced. I had to start taking painkillers. Loving Ethan Knight had taken all my strength, half my life even. I didn't know if I could get the other half back. I had grown to love being in the operating room. If I didn't have Ethan, at least I had to hold on to my only passion. I contacted my mentor in Germany, and she arranged everything for me. "Ethan, I'm leaving." He had found his true love, so there was no need for me to humiliate myself any further. A month later, after my last surgery and completing the handover of my work, I met with my best friend, Laura Miles, before leaving. She hugged me and cried, "Belle, why don't you tell him the truth?" "Ethan Knight should just die. You never should have saved him." I covered Laura's mouth. "Laura, don't say that about him. It was all my choice. The person I am today is because of him. Otherwise, I'd still be living in the gutter." From the moment fate had him save me, we were destined to cross paths, then drift apart until we never met again. I had 3 days left. I humbly asked him, "Can you spend 2 days with me?" Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps he wanted to end things cleanly. He replied to my message in seconds, which was unheard of. "Okay." Receiving the reply I had hoped for, I no longer felt the happiness I had imagined. That night, for the first time, he went grocery shopping with me. He kept staring at me the whole time we were at the store. I no longer had the energy to analyze the meaning behind his gaze. I cooked a table full of his favorite dishes. He tacitly cleared the table and washed the dishes. He was a picky eater and wasn't used to eating out. Whenever I had time, I would cook for him or deliver food to the receptionist at his company. This evening was the warmest we had spent together in all these years. We were just like an ordinary married couple. He kissed me again. Chapter 6, I think I understood why he had been staring at me. I resisted. He was domineering. Moonlight filtered through the curtains into the bedroom. I could clearly see all the desire in his eyes. In the end, I gave in. I laughed mockingly. What was this? Breakup sex? He was right. I guess I was pretty cheap. Knowing full well he didn't love me, that he was about to marry Tessa, yet here he was, using me for his own amusement. Was it pity? A form of compensation? I didn't dare to think too much about it. It was too bitter, too shameful. This was what I owed him. Once the debt was paid, I would leave. Afterward, he showered and fell into a deep sleep with his back to me. The next day, when I woke up, the house was empty. That evening, I cooked his favorite dishes again, trying new variations. But I waited until midnight, and he never came back. I had reheated the food 5 times. I didn't take a single bite. I threw it all in the trash. He wasn't coming back. On the news, he was having a candlelight dinner with Tessa. On the table were 999 roses, their red so bright it hurt my eyes. He got down on one knee and proposed to Tessa. Tessa covered her mouth, moved beyond words. They kissed under the flashing lights of the cameras, a passionate, deep French kiss. My stomach churned. The memory of last night's passionate entanglement made me sick. I didn't stop retching until only bile came up and my face was streaked with tears. In the bathtub, I scrubbed at the marks on my body until my skin was raw, trying to wash away the absurdity of the previous night. I told myself not to be angry, not to be sad. At least we had a pleasant night together. But my heart wouldn't listen. It shattered into dust, mingling with my blood, the pain coursing through my veins until my entire body trembled. I took another painkiller. On the 3rd day, Ethan came home. He brought back a haute couture evening gown. "Tonight, you're coming with me to a banquet." I retorted, "Is my love really that worthless?" He had just proposed to Tessa, and now he was asking me to a banquet. Was he not satisfied with the level of humiliation he had already put me through? He threw the gown on the sofa and slammed the door on his way out. Go if you want, don't if you don't in the past. If he had been willing to take me to a public event, I would have been ecstatic. Laura came over to say goodbye and saw the gown. "Belle, what kind of fancy banquet are you going to?" I told her what Ethan had said. Laura exploded with rage. "That bastard Ethan Knight, he's gone too far. Is it not enough to torture you? Does he want to publicly humiliate you too? Does he even have a heart?" A heart? He had one. It just wasn't for me. I hadn't planned on going to the banquet, but after hearing Laura, I changed my mind. Ethan's intention was surely to publicly break off our engagement. Perhaps, if the pain was extreme enough, I would finally give up on him. That way, even if my surgery failed, I would have no regrets. "Address?" Ethan instantly replied with a location pin. I saw Laura off and took a taxi to the event. When I arrived, everyone looked at me with mocking amusement. Tessa strode up to me, full of arrogance. "Belle, what are you doing here?" What? Hadn't Ethan told her? Right, he wanted to give his beloved a surprise. A surprise for his true wife by humiliating his doormat fiancé. A token of his true love. The pain in my abdomen almost made me collapse. Tessa sharply noticed and supported me as we walked towards the outdoor pool. "Isabel, why did you have to come and humiliate yourself? Ethan doesn't love you at all." She wasn't calling me Belle anymore. Her confident tone and the triumphant look in her eyes were like knives twisting in my gut. But what if I didn't want to admit defeat? I stubbornly held on to my last shred of dignity. "Is that so? Isabel, why don't we make a bet?" Following her gaze, I understood. I shook my head. I didn't want to die yet, but Tessa shoved me into the water. As I fell, I anticipated her move and grabbed her arm. Immediately, the sound of someone else falling into the water reached the main hall. I couldn't swim. Survival instincts made me thrash in the water, choking on several mouthfuls. Tessa could swim. The water magnified her ferocious expression. She was underwater, trying to pull me deeper. The pain in my abdomen was so intense I was about to lose consciousness. I had no strength left to struggle. The pool water wasn't cold, but my heart was frozen. I saw Ethan swimming towards me. He gave me an indifferent glance before swimming past me into the deeper water. He scooped Tessa into his arms and swam to the edge. It wasn't until someone shouted in alarm, "There's someone else! Blood, she's bleeding." Chapter 7. Pregnancy. The guests at the banquet were all wealthy and influential. No one was going to jump in to save an insignificant person like me. The security guards, who arrived late, were the ones who pulled me out. Just before I lost consciousness, Ethan finally let go of Tessa. He ran towards me. "Belle, I must have been hallucinating. Why would he call me so affectionately? I think I even saw my mentor coming to get me. I really must be dying to be having such beautiful dreams." When I woke up in the hospital, my throat felt like it was being sliced by knives. As I regained consciousness, only my best friend, Laura, was by my side. "Belle, how could you be so foolish?" I didn't understand. The moment Ethan went to save Tessa, my heart had already died. I could finally stop being a doormat. Why was she scolding me? "Belle, you need to terminate the pregnancy. You have to have the surgery as soon as possible, or you'll really die." Pregnancy. Whose baby? My mind went blank. She handed me the diagnosis report, and my face grew even paler. How could this be? Ethan and I had only been together twice, so it was from that first night. Life really has a twisted sense of humor. What was the point of giving me a child now? I touched my flat stomach, overcome with sorrow. Ask the doctor to schedule the surgery. As Laura was pushing me in a wheelchair for a pre-op checkup, we ran into a weary-looking Ethan. He frowned and walked towards me, his voice full of disdain. "Isabel, did you forget how to swim, or were you just pretending to test me?" The feeling of drowning, of water filling my lungs, swept over me again. Had he forgotten that the first time I went to a pool, I had choked on water and had to be resuscitated? Ever since then, I've had a severe phobia of water. Right, he never cared about anything related to me, big or small. Back then, when I called him from the hospital, he had mocked me in the same way. "Isabel, it's just swimming. Is it really that big a deal? You're getting more and more creative with your attempts to get a reaction out of me if you're not tired of it." "I am." Laura couldn't hold back and stood up for me. "Ethan Knight, are you even human? If you hadn't forced Belle to go to that banquet, would she have fallen into the water? Why didn't you save her after she fell in? It's one thing to ignore her after all. You had your green tea bitch to comfort. But what right do you have to blame her for not being able to swim? If it weren't for you, she would." I grabbed Laura's arm to stop her. Luckily, Laura didn't know that Tessa had pushed me. Otherwise, she would have already pulled out a knife. Ethan's lips were pressed into a thin line as he stared at me. After a long silence, he finally said, "It was dark, and I couldn't see clearly that it was you." My heart felt like it was about to explode. I would have preferred he didn't explain. Underwater, he had swum right past me. Was that one glance not enough to recognize me? If the light was so bad, how did he manage to see Tessa, who was below me? "You couldn't recognize me, but you could recognize Tessa?" The question tore through me. He suddenly knelt, taking my hand. "Isabel, can you stop this?" "I'm not." His palm was hot against my cold hand. He rubbed it a few times. "Since you're fine, why are you putting on this weak act for me? Or are you trying to guilt-trip me again?" My lips trembled. I didn't even have the strength to cry. I tried to pull my hand away, but Ethan wouldn't let go, his grip tightening painfully. Overcome with anger, I kicked him hard in the chest. He let out a muffled grunt and fell to the ground, his eyes dark. "Isabel, don't push me. Ethan Knight, you bastard, do you have any idea that Belle is pregnant with your child? If you don't love her, why did you touch her? This is for bullying her, you scumbag, you heartbreaker." Laura kicked and punched Ethan while he was down. Chapter 8. Tessa rushed out from nowhere and threw herself over Ethan, shielding him with her body. Laura's fists and feet rained down on Tessa instead. Her pained, delicate cries were so moving that even I was touched. At that moment, Tessa was so beautiful that every strand of her hair was alluring. No wonder Ethan had fallen for her. She stood up like a warrior and berated us. "What do you think you're doing?" "Belle, Ethan was worried about you and came to see you. Why would you treat him like this and let this woman hit him? Even I know you're on your period these days. Do you really think you can trick Ethan by pretending to be pregnant and bleeding?" I stared at Ethan in disbelief. My period was always regular, but how would he, a man who didn't love me, know that I was supposed to be on it? And how could he be so shameless as to discuss my menstrual cycle with another woman? Was I just a topic of conversation to spice up their foreplay? The thought made me want to vomit. In the moment Ethan knelt and took my hand, a crazy idea had flashed through my mind. I wanted to have this baby, even if it cost me my life. It was the only connection between us. I had foolishly hoped that even if he didn't love me, he might love our child. Ultimately, I was wrong. My sincere feelings were met with such malicious suspicion, making the child in my womb seem like a joke. Ethan took Tessa's hand and slowly stood up, looking down at me. Isabel, I've really spoiled you. Laura, I can tolerate you hitting me for Isabel's sake, but you shouldn't have hit. Tessa apologized to her, even as I desperately told myself not to be sad, not to be angry. Sorrow still overwhelmed me. Tessa immediately put on a guilty expression and looked at Ethan. Ethan, Belle's friend, was just trying to stand up for her. She didn't mean to hit me. You don't have to be so serious. So, this was a top-tier green tea bitch. I had learned something new. She seemed to be pleading for Laura and me, but she was actually implying that I was petty and had let my friend run wild. As expected, Ethan's face turned cold as stone. Laura's face was red with anger. Who needs your fake kindness? You vicious woman, apologize. You, surnamed Knight, just you wait, you'll regret this. At my signal, Laura pushed my wheelchair away. Ethan stared intently at my back and murmured, Tessa, do you think she could really be pregnant? A glint flashed in Tessa's eyes. She took Ethan's hand, lacing their fingers together. Ethan, I know you're a responsible man, but that's no reason for Belle to lie to you. I asked the doctor. Belle is fine. If she were pregnant, the doctor would have definitely told us. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief and smiled gently at Tessa. You're so understanding. You don't even blame her after she kicked you, and you took a beating for me. Does it hurt? His voice was just loud enough for me to hear everything. Laura couldn't take it anymore and stopped, ready to go back and fight. Laura, don't dirty your hands for someone who isn't worth it. Let's go. My trembling hands betrayed my breakdown. I gently touched the corner of my eye. Why was it so dry? I couldn't help but look back. I saw the two of them holding each other closely, their fingers intertwined. Tessa gave me a faint smile, the smile of a victor. For some reason, my heart started to pound wildly. Chapter 9. The desperate surgery. The next second, Tessa fainted in Ethan's arms. Tessa! Someone help, doctor! There was a panic and urgency in Ethan's voice I had never heard before. As Tessa was being carried away on a stretcher, Ethan glanced at me. That one look was filled with resentment, impatience, and disgust. I stiffly turned my head away. My heart felt like a piece of it had been gouged out, leaving a bloody mess. Putting his words and Tessa's smile together, I knew Tessa was faking it. She had succeeded. She had successfully made Ethan, who was already indifferent to me, loathe me even more. It didn't matter anymore. If not love, then disgust would do. At least I existed in his mind. The abortion was scheduled for 3 days later. Laura was busy with work, so I told her to focus on her job. The moment she left, Tessa walked into my hospital room. Isabel, should I say you're lucky or just really lucky? The beauty had taken off her mask, revealing her fangs. I remained silent, secretly turning on the voice recorder on my phone. What, cat got your tongue? You didn't really think you could become a princess just because you're carrying Ethan's child, did you? Dream on. Do you think I don't know what you're up to? It's true that the living can't compete with the dead, but that's only if the dead person mattered to Ethan. In your condition, even if you don't have an abortion, you'll just end up as 2 corpses. Since you were sensible enough to schedule the abortion yourself, here's $5 million as a reward. Go live out the rest of your days. With that, a check hit my face with surprising force. Without love, I wasn't going to argue with money. I took the check and closed my eyes, dismissing her. Tessa, who had expected to see me humiliated, was furious when she didn't get the reaction she wanted. Her beautiful face twisted in a snarl. She grabbed my oversized hospital gown. Isabel, if it weren't for you, Ethan and I would have been together a long time ago. He rejected our arranged marriage for a cheap thing like you and made me a laughingstock. Now it's your turn to taste it. The pain in my abdomen flared up again. I forcefully pried her hands off me. Using the momentum, she fell to the floor. Isabel, stop. The moment Ethan pushed the door open, he saw me push Tessa to the ground. His face was filled with anger and shock. Tessa put a finger to his lips and sobbed, Ethan, don't blame Belle. It was my fault for insulting her with the money. I didn't want Belle to get upset and hurt herself, but I think I did the wrong thing. What should I do, Ethan? Tessa huddled in Ethan's arms, crying her eyes out. My eyes widened in disbelief. You're lying, I recorded. I pulled my phone out from under the covers to play the recording. Staring at the black screen, my mind went blank. Life really had a cruel sense of humor. Of all the times for my phone to die seeing my stubbornness and vulgar language, Ethan's face darkened. He snatched the check from me and tore it to shreds. $5 million fluttered down on me like snowflakes. Isabel, you think you're worth $5 million. I'd rather give it to a dog. Apologize, he held Tessa and commanded me curtly. She staged the whole thing, and I really am pregnant with your child. Seeing my defiance, Ethan's tone grew harsher. Isabel, apologize? No, for the first time ever, I refused Ethan so resolutely. Chapter 10, he didn't expect my defiance. His face was full of impatience and anger. Fine, you chose this. Don't blame me. Tessa's lips curved into a triumphant smirk, which she quickly masked with a look of guilt. Ethan, let it go. My nose stung, and I was overwhelmed with a sense of injustice. I lifted my head and looked straight at Ethan, refusing to back down. After a few minutes of stalemate, he slapped me hard across the face. It stung fiercely. Isabel, that was for Tessa. A wave of nausea washed over me, and the pain in my abdomen made me see stars. I stared blankly at the man I had loved for 10 years, who suddenly felt like a complete stranger. He frowned, his eyes filled with disappointment and disgust. He scooped up Tessa and turned to leave. I grabbed my phone and threw it at his back, but I was so weak from the pain that it had no force. After vomiting several mouthfuls of blood, I passed out. When I opened my eyes again, I was on an operating table. The cold metal chilled me to the bone. Doctors and nurses bustled around. The coolness below my waist told me what was about to happen. But it wasn't time. I had just been vomiting blood and had fainted. How could they perform a DC on me in this condition? The sight of the gleaming surgical instruments laid out in a row made my scalp tingle. This was clearly the setup for a major surgery. My instincts as a woman and a doctor told me I had to escape. Perhaps they hadn't expected me to wake up, because no one in the operating room reacted at first. I have a natural tolerance to anesthesia. A doctor once told me during a previous surgery that they had to double the dose to put me under. So, the anesthetic they had given me wasn't enough to stop me from jumping off the table and running. Having spent years in operating rooms, I knew roughly where the door controls were. As I fumbled to open the door, my hair was yanked back violently. I gritted my teeth against the sharp pain and clung to the door with all my might, screaming, "Help!" But the hallway was empty. They had chosen the middle of the night to do this. As I was knocked unconscious, I thought despairingly that loving Ethan Knight would cost me 2 lives. I had already decided to give up. The abortion was scheduled. Couldn't they even wait 2 more days? I didn't know if the order came from Tessa or Ethan. But as I was losing consciousness, I clearly heard a doctor instructing a nurse, "Give her a bigger dose, we can't have another incident." Her, pregnant with the Crown Prince's child. As if lying on the cold operating table again, my consciousness faded completely. I knew what they were going to do. My uterus. They never intended to just perform a DC. They were going to remove my baby along with my uterus. Fine. My heart was completely torn out, leaving nothing but a bloody, gaping hole. Ethan Knight, my devotion was worth less than feeding a dog. When Laura came to see me after finishing her work, I was already back in my room. "Belle, I was gone for 2 days. How did you end up like this?" "Yes, how did I let myself get into this state?" My face was as white as a ghost. My lips, usually naturally red, were now pale as wax, with tiny cracks of blood. I tried to smile, but the movement split my dry lips, and beads of blood immediately seeped out. I wiped it away with the back of my hand and said with forced casualness, "Laura, I had the surgery early. I wanted to leave sooner." The internet was right. A doormat will be a doormat until the very end, left with nothing. "Belle, if you want to cry, just cry. I'm here with you. After you cry it out, we'll start over." I leaned numbly against Laura's shoulder. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't squeeze out a single tear. Chapter 11. Forced into a corner the moment I was knocked out, I understood that between life and love, life was more important. Love was just a seasoning. I was a coward. I was afraid of dying. When I was discharged, Tessa came to see me, her head held high. Isabel, do you regret it? But it's too late for regrets. You can never be a mother again. You don't deserve it. Her red lips spat out vicious words as she laughed wildly. It turned out this hospital was owned by Tessa's family. Don't even think about pulling any more tricks. You're nothing but a sewer rat. You can't cause any more trouble. With that, Tessa kindly turned on the TV for me. The news was flooded with reports of me, the vicious doormat, pushing Tessa into the pool. In the video, Tessa was wrapped in a blanket, shivering in Ethan's arms, looking pitiful. Afterward, in an interview, she struggled to hold back her sobs. Ethan and I have been engaged for a long time. Belle has always acted as his fiancé, and out of respect for her feelings, I didn't want to expose her. But that became a weapon she used against me. It was my kindness that led to this tragedy. I just didn't expect that Belle would deliberately do this on the day of her period to gain our sympathy. And Ethan, gently holding Tessa, said, "Tessa, it's all my fault for not protecting you. I never thought inviting Isabel to the banquet out of kindness would lead to this. Out of respect for our past, I just wanted her to realize the gap between us and back down gracefully. For the first time, I understood the terrifying power of wealth and influence, the power to decide life and death, to act with impunity. So this was Ethan Knight's world. I really couldn't measure up. No, I no longer had any desire to. He didn't need to go to the trouble of inviting me to the banquet. I was already planning to leave him forever the next day. Perhaps it was the lingering pregnancy hormones, or perhaps it was my own unwillingness to accept defeat. I found the cherished screenshot of his proposal text and sent it directly to Ethan. After typing a long message, I realized our chat history was still stuck on the location pin he had sent me. I deleted the photo. I was wrong. How could I blame him? I was the one who stupidly and cheaply went looking for abuse. I deserved all of it. If I couldn't win, couldn't I at least run? If Ethan had even a shred of affection for me, he wouldn't have let the news escalate to this point, nor would he have publicly humiliated me for trying to climb the social ladder. It was true he had never publicly acknowledged me as his fiancé, but he had never denied it either. It was he who, just as I was about to give up, had reignited my dead heart and made me the crown prince's fiancé. Everyone in our social circle knew about it, even if the general public didn't. But not a single person came forward to confirm it. I understood. This was all with Ethan's tacit approval. After being discharged, I immediately went back to my own hospital for a full checkup. As expected, my uterus was gone. The hospital director, Samuel Sullivan, was my mentor's brother. When he heard from the ultrasound department that my uterus had been removed, his jaw dropped. "Isabel, are you out of your mind? Don't you know your own physical condition?" I couldn't blame him for scolding me. In the 7 years I had been a doormat, what crazy thing hadn't I done? I suppressed the hatred in my heart and tried to reassure Samuel. "Director, it was an accident. I didn't expect to be pregnant, and there were complications, so it had to be removed." The director sighed in frustration, disappointed in me. I thought that by keeping quiet, I could find some peace. I was wrong. For some reason, Tessa was bent on destroying me. The patient from my last surgery, who had been recovering well, died at home. The family brought the body and caused a scene at my hospital in broad daylight. They held a death certificate from Tessa's hospital, claiming medical malpractice, and demanded that the director hand me over to face the consequences. The director refused. Ethan came to find me. "Isabel, you've disappointed me so much. Your duty is to save lives, not to get caught up in personal drama. How could you bring your personal grudges to work? What did Tessa's family's maid ever do to you that you had to be so cruel?" What? The deceased was Tessa's family's maid. My guilt and self-blame vanished instantly. This was Tessa's scheme. Chapter 12, I gritted my teeth. Ethan Knight, am I really that untrustworthy in your eyes? Am I the kind of doctor who would disregard human life? Tessa accused me of pushing her into the pool, and you joined her without even investigating. Why couldn't it have been her who pushed me? She casually says I'm not pregnant, and you go along with her and have my uterus removed. Are you even human? If my love is so dirty, you shouldn't have led me on and gotten me pregnant, and you still think I'm at fault for the death of Tessa's maid? I was practically screaming, letting out all my grievances. I threw my medical report at his face. He glanced at it casually and said with contempt, "Isabel, what's the point of forging these reports? What is it about you that's worth her going to all this trouble? That was a fatal blow. Yes, what about me was worth Tessa tormenting me to this extent? Ethan Knight, you don't know why? How can you be so blind? Ethan rubbed his temples, as if he was completely disappointed in me but couldn't bear to give up. Belle, I'll pay the compensation to the family for you, as long as you publicly admit your mistake. At that moment, a chill ran through me, and my mouth filled with a bitter taste. The ends of my hair, curled with bitterness, danced chaotically in the wind. My eyes were bloodshot as I spoke, each word dripping with blood. I will never admit to something I didn't do. If Tessa's maid is dead, she deserved it. Good riddance. I didn't know I was being watched. My words, taken out of context, along with my ferocious expression at the time, were exposed to the public. I never would have expected Ethan to be shameless enough to personally vouch for the authenticity of the report. Public opinion exploded. With the Crown Prince's word, my hospital was dragged into hell. The number of protests and disturbances grew exponentially each day. The impact was devastating. No matter how I explained, it was useless. The hospital was shut down for investigation. In just a few days, half of Samuel's hair had turned white. I felt terrible. I hated myself for letting my mouth run wild and causing trouble that implicated others. For so many years, Samuel had personally mentored me, treating me like a sister. And in the end, I had dragged him down like this. How could I face him? Even at this point, he still protected me. Isabel, go abroad to find Chloe for your surgery. I'll handle things here. Worst case, I'll just close the hospital. My mentor, Dr. Chloe Sullivan, also urged me to prioritize my health. My heart felt like it was being crushed by a giant rock. I felt like my very existence was a mistake. My misguided love had ultimately turned into a sharp sword that had killed me and wounded those around me. The only people who could prove my innocence were Tessa and Ethan. If I could trade my ruined life for the reputation of the hospital and my colleagues, it seemed like a fair trade. I had waited so long for a suitable liver donor in this country, but I had lost all hope. If I just bowed my head and admitted fault to Ethan, everything could go back to normal. It was a deal worth making. Only I would have to suffer the injustice, and after 7 years, I was used to it. Chapter 13, Letting Go and Leaving. I called Ethan. What will it take for you to leave the hospital alone? I told you, publicly apologized to Tessa. Ethan, I'm begging you, can you? No. Ethan, I'm begging you, for the sake of our past, if you clear the hospital's name, I, Isabel Yates, swear to disappear from your world forever. Our past. What past do we have? Besides, you should have never been in my world in the first place. If you're truly repentant, you have half an hour to come to my office to discuss it. I never used to understand how sorrow could flow like a river. Now, I did. During rush hour, how was I supposed to get to his office in half an hour? But I had to go. Like a tamed lamb, I rushed to Ethan's company. The receptionist, who used to be polite to me, now blocked my way to the elevator, sneering, "Well, if it isn't the famous murderer." I had Ethan's ancestors to thank for this shameful title. Oh, are you trying to scare someone with that murderous look? I'm not a lamb on the operating table for you to slaughter. Some people just don't know their place. Instead of hiding in a gutter for the rest of their lives, they dare to parade around in public. Her mouth ran on and on. I retorted coldly, "How much did Tessa pay you to be a dog instead of a person?" My words left her speechless, then she flew into a rage. Then she giggled. "If I'm a dog, then what are you?" "Oh, I know. A desperate doormat who can't get what she wants." With that, she called security to drag me out. Seeing my pathetic state, the men took the opportunity to grope me. Was this another humiliation orchestrated by Ethan? I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to solve the hospital's crisis and leave for good. But Ethan stopped answering my calls and texts. I even left messages on his payment apps and social media. All of them went unanswered. I waited bitterly until the entire building went dark, but Ethan never appeared. Dragging my exhausted body back to the hospital, I saw it was still surrounded by protesters, even in the middle of the night. At that moment, all I wanted to do was jump and prove my innocence with my death. I climbed to the rooftop and walked to the very edge of the railing when my phone rang. It was my mentor, Chloe's brother, Samuel. "Belle, I've booked you a flight. My sister has already applied to dissolve and liquidate the hospital. You'll go abroad with her. Once you've recovered, we'll start over." Tears streamed down my face. But what about the other medical staff? Belle, don't worry about any of that. My sister has arranged everything. Who hasn't loved a scumbag in their youth? You can't let this get you down. At 2 in the morning, Samuel dragged me from the rooftop to the airport. On the advertising screen, behind-the-scenes footage of the Knight family's crown prince and his fiancée, Tessa Vance's, wedding photo shoot was playing on a loop. On screen, they looked like a perfect match, made in heaven. No wonder he didn't have time to deal with the hospital's problems. Why would he waste time waiting for me? It was just another way to toy with me and amuse Tessa. I laughed at my own expense. Samuel's brow was furrowed so tightly you could pinch a fly in it. Isabel, don't tell me you're still hung up on him. I forced a broken smile. Never again. Isabel Yates is already dead. She died on that rooftop 2 hours ago. I blocked Ethan on everything. Since this relationship began with Ethan at an airport, it was only fitting that I end it here. I posted a unilateral announcement on my social media feed. Our stars are crossed. The engagement is off, the caption for the photo read, "Goodbye and good riddance." Once I let go, we would never see each other again in this lifetime. After passing through security, I took off the jade bracelet and threw it, along with my phone, into the trash. That phone held the 10 years of my love, a love so humble it was buried in the dust. The jade bracelet was the only gift Ethan had ever given me. I had it appraised at a jewelry store. It was a fake, just like me. No matter how much I gave him my heart, in his eyes, I was just a cheap imitation that couldn't compare to a wealthy heiress like Tessa. Chapter 14. Shortly after I boarded the plane, a group of men in black suits followed the phone's location and found it in the trash can. "Miss, she's already escaped." Tessa replied with a lazy, indifferent tone. "She's lucky. Since she's escaped, she better never think of coming back." Tessa hung up, the coldness on her face vanishing in an instant, replaced by a shy smile as she gracefully walked into the room. "Ethan, Belle actually ran off to another country. I can't believe she's so irresponsible, causing trouble for everyone." Ethan snorted. "Good riddance. She was an eyesore anyway, just an irrelevant person not worth mentioning." The two embraced and kissed, spending a passionate night together. In contrast, my situation was dire. When I arrived in Germany, my condition deteriorated rapidly. No amount of painkillers worked anymore. In just 2 months, the tumor on my liver, aggravated by repeated biopsies, began to grow aggressively. My abdomen swelled up as if I were pregnant. My mentor, Chloe, would often cry secretly when she saw how emaciated I had become. "Samuel, what did Belle do to deserve this? She's already let go. But the Vance and Knight families still won't leave her alone. Are they really trying to kill her? What did she do wrong?" Samuel's eyes were red. During my lucid moments, I said my final goodbyes to Laura, repeatedly warning her not to cause trouble on my behalf when the day came. Once I was dead, Ethan and Tessa would leave my friends alone. I came to this realization after the liver I had been matched with was suddenly intercepted by someone else, and Laura lost her job again. As long as I was alive, my friends and I would never know peace. I had spent my entire youth loving Ethan, so I only had a few friends, Laura and the Sullivan siblings. Tessa knew my weaknesses and always hit where it hurt most. As they wished, I was dying. I fell into a coma again. Chloe put me on a ventilator and, holding back tears, rushed me to the emergency room. In my final moments, Laura arrived in Germany to see me one last time. Her face was pale, her lips trembled, and her tears fell onto my limp hand, scalding hot. "Belle, can you please? Don't die, don't leave me." The plea in her eyes made my chest ache with a dense pain. "Belle, I'm going to kill those inhuman bastards." The hatred in her eyes was tangible. I hated them too. I hated that because of a man, I had ended up in this state, neither human nor ghost. And I had dragged down the most important people in my life. It wasn't that I couldn't live. It was that they didn't want me to. "Laura, don't. It's not worth it. Death settles all debts." She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Belle, do you have any last words?" She couldn't finish the sentence, choked by sobs. Chapter 15. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I'm an orphan. I have no family. The 3 most important people in my life were now in front of me. They tried their best to smile, holding back their tears. "I'm sorry. For me, live happily." I wanted to say more, but my consciousness faded completely, and my eyes grew too heavy to open. The Sullivan siblings held Laura as the three of them finally broke down, crying in each other's arms. Following my wishes, the Sullivans handled my funeral arrangements. My ashes were scattered at sea. Laura returned to our home country, completely lost. On that day, Ethan Knight and Tessa Vance held a magnificent wedding. Amidst the romantic music, the MC delivered an impassioned speech. Laura burst out from a restroom and hurled several bags of filthy water at the couple on stage. Ethan Knight, Isabel is dead, you don't get to be happy. You too killed Isabel. You scumbag and slut, I hope you both die a horrible death. Another bag of blood burst about a meter away from Ethan. Blood splattered everywhere, staining the diamonds on Tessa's wedding dress. Someone, get this crazy woman out of here, Tessa roared, her face pale with shock, her usual composure gone. I thought Laura would listen to me and let it go. I never expected her to bribe the hotel security, sneak into the wedding, and cause such a scene. Knowing Tessa's vengeful nature, having the most important moment of her life ruined meant she would definitely retaliate fiercely against Laura. Unfortunately, no matter how much I pleaded, Laura couldn't hear me. Her only thought was to seek justice for her friend who had died a tragic death. The banquet hall echoed with her furious shouts, Ethan Knight, Isabel is dead, she didn't have to die. You two forced her to. A jolt went through Ethan's heart, but his face remained cold. Isabel is as strong as an ox. I'll die before she does. Did she send you here to ruin my wedding? Is that fun for you? Or does she think that if she ruins my wedding with Tessa, I'll marry her instead? Go tell her to give up that dream. Besides, whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with me. Laura was dragged out. She was crying and laughing at the same time. People on the street thought she was insane. Perhaps because I was so worried about Laura, my soul followed her across the ocean back to our home country. Laura, don't be like this. It hurts me to see you. I tried to hug her, but I couldn't touch her. She sat like a madwoman on the curb, crying until she couldn't make a sound. She hadn't slept in days, and her emotions were a wreck. She fainted. I frantically tried to get help, but no one stopped for her. I floated into the hotel and screamed at Ethan, I'm already dead, can't you leave my friend alone? Ethan Knight, I'm begging you, save Laura, but he couldn't hear me. He just seemed a little dazed. The joy of his wedding seemed to have faded considerably. Was he unhappy because Laura had ruined his wedding? But that small incident didn't stop the wedding in the banquet hall. The chaotic scene was quickly cleaned up. He and Tessa kissed, exchanged rings. Just as I was at a loss, someone came and whispered in Ethan's ear. Upon hearing the words, the ring in his hand clattered to the floor. His face was a mask of shock, his pupils constricting violently. Dead, Isabel is dead. Say that again. How could this happen? How could she just die? The man who delivered the message was being choked by the tie Ethan was gripping, his breathing heavy. Sir, she's been dead for half a month. Malignant liver tumor, she didn't get a donor in time. The man kept his head down, not daring to look at Ethan. Chapter 16, Ethan's entire body trembled violently. He let go of the man's tie. Impossible, this must be another one of Isabel's tricks to get my attention. She wouldn't dare to die without my permission. That was the funniest joke I had heard in my afterlife. He had driven me to my death, yet he was angry that I had died. Did he still think I was that doormat? Well, his doormat was well and truly dead. Tessa, on the verge of tears, picked up the wedding ring. Ethan, let's go abroad to find Belle for our honeymoon. We can ask her to be our child's godmother. I'm sure she'd love that. I couldn't help but gag. I then noticed Tessa's slightly protruding belly. She must be more than 3 months along to be showing so much. Counting back, she and I had gotten pregnant at the same time. No wonder she was in such a hurry to get rid of my child and my uterus. Ethan Knight, you disgust me. The interrupted wedding continued, but I had no interest in watching. I just wanted to find someone to help Laura. I floated out of the hotel like a madwoman, trying to get the attention of passers-by. I was so anxious my chest hurt. Laura, someone was calling Laura's name. The voice was so familiar. It was the man who had reported my death to Ethan. Was Ethan going to harm Laura now? I rushed to shield Laura, but he ran right through my incorporeal form and picked her up. Let go of Laura. I'm already dead. You're not allowed to bully my friends anymore. I tried to pull his hands away with all my might, but I couldn't. Hello, 911. I let go, stunned. He was being kind enough to save my Laura? Whatever. As long as Laura was safe, I didn't care if his dirty hands touched her. I stayed with Laura, watching the man pace back and forth outside the emergency room. He was so agitated. He took call after call. Finally, with bloodshot eyes, he slumped onto a bench and violently pulled at his hair. I couldn't understand his actions. He was clearly Ethan's man, so why was he so concerned about Laura? Weren't they supposed to be trying to eliminate us? Fortunately, after treatment, Laura was out of danger. I breathed a sigh of relief. After confirming Laura was okay, I floated to the cemetery. Laura had bought a plot for me and had put some of my old belongings that she had kept in an urn. It was a cenotaph. In front of the headstone were my favorite sunflowers and a durian cake. The scent of durian filled the cemetery, making my heart feel a little sweet. But why was that person I hated here? I saw Ethan, holding a bouquet of flowers, stumbling towards my grave. He had changed overnight. He was unshaven, his face was haggard, and his eyes were full of bloodshot veins. He looked more like a ghost than I did. He fell to his knees in front of the headstone and gently traced my name. Isabel, how could you die? I found it so laughable that I slapped the air a dozen times. Thanks to you, aren't you happy that I'm dead? Belle. Don't call me that, it's disgusting, you're not worthy. Belle, if I had known that liver was for you, I would have never let Tessa take it. I'm already dead, what's the point of your fake tears? To show how much you cared about me. Belle, why didn't you tell me you were sick? He wept silently, as if he had lost his most precious treasure. Chapter 17. Frantic revenge. Laura came to see me again today. The first thing she saw was Ethan kneeling in front of my grave, not only touching my name, but also my face on the headstone. Even more shamelessly, he had fake tears streaming down his face. Laura was instantly furious and tried to kick him away. Ethan Knight, you bastard, get your filthy hands off her. Get lost, don't dirty Belle's path to reincarnation. You don't deserve to be kneeling here. Ethan turned and knelt before Laura instead. There must be some misunderstanding. I never wanted to hurt Belle. My marriage to Tessa was just a means to an end. I didn't expect so many things to happen. Belle would have understood my intentions. Ethan, you really are heartless. Laura became my perfect mouthpiece. Scumbag, I spit on you, how dare you even mention Belle, why didn't you protect her from the beginning? Why did you push her to her death, step by step? Do you have any idea how much she suffered, how much she was wronged before she died? She's dead, and you're still insulting her like this. Are you determined not to let her rest in peace? Laura, you don't understand. I love Belle. I was just so consumed by revenge that I was blinded by Tessa. And then Tessa accidentally got pregnant with my child, so I couldn't see my own heart clearly. Really? An accident? So, sleeping with me and getting me pregnant was his way of compensating for his infidelity. His way of loving was certainly unique. Should I thank him then, for letting me live a few more days to endure the darkest and most humiliating time of my life? Ha 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 ha, ridiculous, how dare you say you love Belle? She loved you for 10 years, followed you like a puppy for 7. Did you ever show her a single ounce of love or give her a single response? All the pain she ever felt came from you. It was the first time I had ever seen Ethan look so vulnerable and broken. I didn't understand. Who was he putting on the show for? Weren't he and Tessa supposed to be on their honeymoon? His explanations meant nothing to me anymore. I didn't believe for a second that he had ever loved me. I'm sorry. Laura's fists finally rained down on Ethan. He hung his head, taking the beating without fighting back. Laura kicked away the bouquet he had brought. Take your disgusting flowers and get lost. Belle hated chrysanthemums. Ethan picked up the flowers and left, looking dejected. He threw the ruined bouquet in the trash. Another month passed. Ethan came to my grave every day without fail to kneel and pray, rain or shine. He knelt and I floated. I couldn't accept his penance. Belle, I was wrong. Belle, I don't dare to ask for your forgiveness. I deserve this. I clapped in agreement. Perhaps heaven was moved by his sincerity, because from that day on, I was forced to be bound to Ethan. If I moved more than 10 meters away from him, I would be violently pulled back. I was so angry I screamed at him, Ethan Knight, what have you done to me? Why won't you let me go even in death? My anger dissipated into the air. He seemed to sense something and looked up at the empty space for a long time. I thought he had discovered me and was so scared I stopped shouting. He whispered to the sky, Belle, wait for me to atone for my sins. Chapter 18. That night, Tessa happily showed Ethan a 4D ultrasound scan. "Ethan, look, this is our baby, isn't it adorable? The doctor said it's twins, a boy and a girl. Really? Do you like them?" "As long as they're your children, I love them, Ethan. What should we name them?" Tessa was so absorbed in her joy that she didn't notice the sinister look in Ethan's eyes. He handed her a glass of warm milk. "Naming them is an important decision. We can take our time." Tessa caressed her bulging belly and nestled against Ethan like a little bird. Soon after finishing the milk, Tessa felt incredibly sleepy. "Ethan, I'm so tired." "If you're tired, then sleep." When Tessa woke up, she was tied to a makeshift operating table. "Welcome to hell." Ethan's sudden voice snapped her out of her daze. The row of gleaming surgical instruments looked strangely familiar. She had personally selected the tools used to remove my uterus. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "Let me go." Ethan casually picked up a scalpel, twirling it by the handle. "This is how you cut out Belle's uterus and my child, wasn't it?" "What? Ethan, what are you talking about?" Ethan chuckled. When the anesthetic was injected into her spine, Tessa finally panicked. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "What do you think?" Ethan nodded, and the doctor beside them began the surgery, trembling. But it wasn't a laparoscopic surgery. She could clearly feel something being cut out and then her stomach being stitched up. A watermelon-sized sphere was placed on a tray beside her, dripping with blood. I couldn't bear it and ran outside to retch violently. Even as a soul, the phantom pain in my stomach was excruciating. It made me relive the agony of having my own uterus removed. What was Ethan doing? Avenging me? But what was the point of revenge now? Tessa had lost her children and her uterus, but I felt nothing. It was what she deserved. In the following days, Ethan sent Tessa abroad under the pretext of needing rest, but in reality, she was locked in a basement. Ethan used the resources from Tessa's family to solidify his position at the head of the Knight Corporation, then launched a ruthless campaign of revenge against the Knight family. The people who had tried to eliminate him and his mother were finally brought down. For a time, the Knight family's crown prince was unstoppable. Even the Vance family had to bow to him. In the sunless basement, Tessa grew thin and listless, a far cry from the glamorous heiress she once was. As the Vance family rapidly declined, Ethan inflicted upon Tessa all the same torments she had inflicted on me. He ruined the doctor who had removed my uterus until the man had no choice but to expose the illegal practices at Tessa's hospital to the media. The hospital was investigated, shut down, and eventually went bankrupt. Even the receptionist who had insulted me and the security guard who had groped me were all fired by him. It seemed that everyone had received their just punishment, except for Ethan. When Tessa saw Ethan again, she was on the verge of a mental breakdown. "Ethan Knight, you really are heartless. Do you think that by getting rid of us, you can win Isabelle back? Do you think you're so in love with her?" "Ha ha ha ha, you're wrong. Isabelle is dead. Everything you're doing is just self-deception. If Isabelle were still alive, would you even remember a doormat like her? This is just your self-righteous devotion. Stop trying to impress yourself." Ethan's hands tightened around Tessa's neck, the veins on his hands bulging. "Tessa, I won't let anyone question my love for Belle." Tessa's face turned purple, her eyes bulging, but she forced a smile. "You really are a bastard. Since I pity you, I'll tell you a secret. I have Isabelle's phone. Let me go, and I'll give it to you." Ethan suddenly released his grip. Tessa gasped for air like a dying fish. Chapter 19. The end. When Tessa was taken away, Ethan got my phone. He didn't even have to guess. He typed in his birthday, and the phone unlocked immediately. I didn't know how my phone had ended up with Tessa, but I didn't want Ethan to touch it, because it held too many secrets. Secrets Ethan didn't deserve to know. In the dark night, Ethan clutched my phone like a precious treasure. He curled up on the sofa and scrolled through my private social media posts, one by one. From the first time he saved me in the alley, to when I discovered he had chronic kidney failure and needed a transplant, and then a selfie of me lying on an operating table, repaying a life-saving debt, followed by a picture of the scar and tattoo on my lower back. Looks kind of beautiful at that moment. Ethan could no longer hold back and began to sob uncontrollably. He tore out his hair in clumps, which fell to the floor around him. Ethan touched his own lower back, where there was a similar scar. He finally knew. I was the one who had anonymously donated a kidney to him back then. God knows, when the match came back successful, I felt like the happiest girl in the world. For the first time, I felt like my life had value, that I wasn't just an empty shell. I had never told him about it, and he had forgotten the high school girl who had chased him with hundreds of letters seeking friendship, not love. I once believed my love for him was pure. So, I hoped his love for me would also be pure, unadulterated. But now I understood that my love for him wasn't entirely pure either. I was in love with the Ethan Knight from that dark alley, the one who was like a beam of light illuminating the abyss. That was the first time I had ever seen light take a tangible form. The memory of that light helped me climb out of the abyss, step by step. From then on, I lived in the sunlight. But the light never belonged to me. He finally reached the last post. Goodbye and good riddance. The attached picture was a screenshot of him asking me to be his fiancé. It seemed my short life was documented in these thousands of private posts. Because I had set them to be visible only to me, no one knew how humbly I had loved, or the cycle of hurt, hope, and disappointment I had endured for 7 years. He saw me as a heartless doormat who would come wagging her tail at the slightest hint of affection. Ugh, this woman was really. As the first rays of dawn filled the room, I was shocked to see that Ethan's hair had turned completely white overnight, shining under the morning light. I stayed with him as he went through my social media, my photo album, and finally, our chat history. Our last conversation was still him sending me the location pin. It felt like my life had ended at that very moment. Now, I was like an outsider, watching the tragic life of a doormat. All I could do was sigh. I couldn't bring myself to judge. I had suffered enough. I couldn't bear to curse myself. Ethan unblocked himself on my phone. Then, still curled up, he began to frantically message my accounts on various platforms. Belle, I miss you. When are you coming back? Belle, are you still angry? I was blinded by hatred. I've punished everyone who hurt you. Can you forgive me? I know you won't forgive me. I shouldn't have ignored your calls and messages. I promise I'll be there for you from now on. Belle, please answer me. You used to reply instantly. You're still upset with me, aren't you? That's why you won't forgive me? I shouldn't have torn up that 5 million. Belle, if you come back, I'll give you everything I have. I'm yours too. No one can take me away. As if remembering something else, he started slapping himself, looking completely unhinged. How could I have hit you? I deserve to die, Belle. Look, I've paid you back. Please, just talk to me. Even a single punctuation mark would be enough. Belle, you're not answering because I didn't hit myself hard enough, right? I'll do it again. I had never seen anyone slap themselves so hard. The sound echoed in the empty room for what felt like an eternity. After 3 days without sleep, his body was on the verge of collapse. His face was so swollen I couldn't bear to look. As the sun set, he finally moved. He rummaged through a safe and took out a jewelry box, taking a picture and sending it to me. Belle, look, this emerald jade bracelet, I bought it specifically for you. I never gave it to Tessa. The one she wore was her own. You must have been angry because I didn't give it to you, right? And the jade bracelet you threw away, that was my mother's. I know it's a fake, but it's the most precious thing I own. I had just taken over the company, and my uncles were all eyeing my position. To get my revenge, I had to endure the humiliation. Tessa's family is powerful. With their help, I could quickly establish myself and avenge my mother. When Tessa approached me with a deal, I didn't know how vicious she was. By the time I found out, it was too late. Her getting pregnant was an accident. We were both drunk, and I thought she was you. I had to vomit again, violently. He was still typing frantically, but I could never respond. Just like the messages I used to send him, his chat window would forever be green with sent messages, with no reply. He had uncovered all the secrets on my phone. My soul gradually faded, dissipating into the warm spring sunshine. Later, I heard from a new ghost in the underworld. There was a crazy crown prince in the city who didn't believe in fate. By day, he was a ruthless businessman. By night, like the most devout believer, he would kneel before his beloved wife's grave, kowtowing and begging for forgiveness. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I beg you to come to me in my dreams. This longing is too much to bear. I didn't believe such a strange person could exist. I asked the little ghost. He must have loved his wife very much. But what did he do wrong? Why won't his wife come to him in his dreams? The little ghost pouted dismissively. He says he committed an unforgivable sin. I smiled. This man was interesting. I asked a warden of the underworld to take me to the cemetery. Sure enough, there was a man with a hunched back, kneeling before a grave, crying, "Belle, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I beg you to come to me in my dreams. This longing is too much to bear." I got closer to see the name on the headstone. Beloved wife, Isabel Yates, such a familiar name. I floated behind the headstone to get a better look at the man. His eyes were sunken, with dark circles underneath. He was unshaven, with a full head of white hair. His limbs were so thin he was just skin and bones. He looked more terrifying than a ghost. I suspected a gust of wind could blow him away. For some reason, my nose stung. Then he knelt before another grave next to it, on which was engraved, "Beloved son, Luke Ayan." What a tacky name. Just as I was about to get a closer look, the warden called for me. I left cheerfully as if I had never been to this world. Back in the underworld, the little ghost asked me, "Belle, why are you crying?" I touched the corner of my eye. It was true, I tasted a tear. It was salty and bitter, a bitterness that reached the depths of my soul. I didn't know why I was crying, just as I didn't know what the man who couldn't get what he wanted was asking for. I think he would probably never get it. Chapter 20, Ethan's POV, Part 1, When Isabel blocked me, I didn't care. Her social media post about breaking off the engagement was laughable. In my heart, from the moment I slept with her, she was my wife. Initially, I just needed a woman to declare war on the Knight family, and Isabel was the pawn I chose. I had to show them that while they could beg me to come back, I would never be their puppet again. My mother submitted to them for my sake, and she ended up dead anyway. I had no weaknesses, and I would not yield. But later, Isabel became my weakness. I just couldn't let them know. I stared at Isabel's social media post for a long time. I decided to broadcast the behind-the-scenes footage of my wedding photo shoot with Tessa all over the city. Isabel would definitely see it. But she managed to stay calm and didn't come looking for me. Just as I was about to lose my patience, Tessa showed up with her pregnancy test results. I was furious. Why wasn't Isabel causing a scene yet? Fine. If she wouldn't, then I would really marry Tessa. On the day of the wedding, I had been waiting for so long. My heart was a mix of nervousness and fear. By now, Isabel would surely come and crash the wedding. She loved me so much, she couldn't live without me. I deliberately turned a blind eye when Laura bribed the security guards. Isabel was trying a new tactic. Fine, very good. My heart pounded with excitement as I caught a glimpse of Laura rushing out. Isabel would be appearing soon. I hadn't seen her in 2 months. I really missed her. But what was Laura screaming about? She was saying Isabel was dead? No, I didn't believe it. As long as I was alive, Isabel couldn't be dead. If she didn't show up, I would continue with the wedding. It wasn't until Julian told me that Isabel was dead, had been dead for half a month, that I felt like destroying the world. I didn't believe it. She must have bribed Julian to act this out. The wedding ended, and Isabel still hadn't appeared. I started to panic. Julian was my confidant. He understood my intentions with just a look. He went after Laura. I waited for a long time before Julian finally called me. He said Laura had fainted and was in the emergency room. I finally realized something was wrong. Isabel would sacrifice herself before she would ever let her friends suffer. Laura was her best friend. How could she let Laura be part of such an elaborate act? Like a madman, I ordered Julian to find out the truth. I was terrified of the consequences. But when the photo of Isabel's headstone was placed in front of me, I had to accept it. Isabel was really dead. She could no longer follow me, waiting for me to turn around. I remembered Isabel liked flowers, but I couldn't for the life of me remember which ones. The florist, knowing I was going to a memorial, wrapped up a bouquet of chrysanthemums. Yes, chrysanthemums were good. Isabel used to love watching that movie, Daisy, and would cry her eyes out every time. She would definitely like daisies. I don't know how I managed to walk to her grave. Every step felt like walking on knives, stabbing my heart until it bled. Julian had found out everything. Laura was right. I was the one who killed Isabel. When Tessa said a relative in Germany needed a liver, I had spent a fortune to secure a rare donor. Tessa had helped me solidify my position as the heir, so I was returning the favor. After this, we would be even. But why was it me and Isabel who were now even? That was the liver she had been waiting for over half a year. I knew that even in death, Isabel would never forgive me. I knelt before her grave, caressing her smiling face on the headstone. I couldn't bear to think about how I had pushed her to her death, step by step. It probably all started on the day I forgot her birthday and spent the night with Tessa. I naively thought that Isabel would wait for me, that she would endure my awful behavior for my sake. By the time I remembered I had forgotten her birthday, it was the next day, and Tessa was lying in my arms. The shame of cheating crept into my heart. I rushed home, wanting to make it up to Isabel. When I coolly took her to buy a cake, even her hair seemed to dance with joy. Isabel was so easy to please. I breathed a sigh of relief. I patiently waited for her to stand in line. I even tried to guess if she would buy a durian cake since she loved it so much. But before she was done, Tessa called and I left. I couldn't really explain why I left. Maybe it was guilt from having slept with her the night before. To convince Tessa that I would be responsible and gain more of her family's resources, I put on a show of rage and smashed up that popular cake shop. Tessa deliberately called Isabel to come and talk me down in front of her. I didn't want Isabel to see that, but I also hoped she would come. I liked seeing her drop everything for me. When she actually came, I got angry again. I smashed things even more furiously. A nameless fire raged inside me. I didn't like her meek and submissive attempts to calm me down. When she fell so pathetically on the floor, my heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. I didn't care about Tessa anymore. I just wanted to be with Isabel. I took her home and ran her a bath. That night, I couldn't resist. Complex emotions churned in my chest. Isabel had chased after me for so many years, and I had never touched her. It felt like an insult. She asked me if I remembered what yesterday was. I didn't dare to answer that I had forgotten her birthday. I vented my frustrations inside her. Then she asked me, "Have you ever liked me, even for a second?" I couldn't look into her expectant eyes. After all, just 12 hours earlier, I had slept with Tessa. I didn't have the face to tell her I liked her. Even less could I tell her that when I was with Tessa, I was thinking of her. I knew I was shameless. Afterward, I asked myself over and over, "Do you like Isabel?" I was confused. I probably did. Otherwise, why would I have secretly rejoiced, thinking that now that I had marked her, she was my wife? Tomorrow, I would find a place, set it up nicely, and ceremoniously give her the emerald bracelet. It was a gift I had chosen for her. She would definitely like it and understand my meaning. I had just finished setting everything up when Tessa arrived. Even more infuriatingly, she was wearing an emerald bracelet similar to the one I had won at auction. In the shadows, paparazzi were snapping pictures like crazy. For the sake of my revenge, I suppressed my anger and canceled the unannounced event. After dealing with Tessa, that night I took out the only thing my mother had left me. It was a fake jade bracelet, worthless. But it was my most precious possession, 1,000 times more precious than the emerald bracelet I hadn't had the chance to give away. I gave my mother's only memento to Isabel. I didn't want her wearing a bracelet that matched Tessa's. To gain the Vance family's trust, I let the rumors fly. Isabel, for the first time, asked me to spend 2 days with her. God knows, I was so happy I wanted to jump for joy. I replied to her message in seconds. I couldn't wait to get off work, go grocery shopping with her. She cooked, I washed the dishes. This was the simple life I had always dreamed of. That night, Isabel was incredibly cooperative. I was very satisfied, but I broke my promise again. Tessa's father wanted us to finalize our engagement soon so he could support my revenge without any reservations. So, I proposed to Tessa. In my eyes, it was just a proposal. I wouldn't actually marry her. It wasn't hard to propose when I imagined Tessa was Isabel. Because of my broken promise, I bought Isabel a haute couture gown. I wanted to take her to the banquet as compensation. She would have to integrate into my circle eventually, and I wanted her to get used to it early. But she asked me if her love was so worthless. How could it be worthless? Who would dare say that? Chapter 21, Ethan's POV, Part 2. I was so angry I threw the gown down and left. I was just busy trying to suppress the news about the proposal. By the time I got to the banquet, it was too late. An accident had already happened. Isabel and Tessa had both fallen into the water. In front of everyone, right after I had proposed to Tessa, what could I do? Of course, I had to save Tessa first. Otherwise, all my previous pretense and all of Isabel's suffering would have been for nothing. Besides, Isabel knew how to swim. I thought she could take care of herself. The pool wasn't deep. She would be fine. When I saw the blood in the water, I couldn't stop myself from letting go of Tessa and moving towards Isabel. But Tessa was shivering like a leaf and wouldn't let me go. When the ambulance arrived, Tessa fainted. I had to take care of her all night. With doctors there, and Isabel being a doctor herself, I was sure she was fine. I took the opportunity while Tessa was asleep to check on Isabel. She was sitting in a wheelchair, her face pale. I was stunned. Was this a new trick she came up with because she was angry that I had spent the night with Tessa? Although I liked it when she made a fuss over me, now was not the time for her to be causing trouble. As I rubbed her cold hands, for a moment, I wanted to tell her everything. Laura looked like she wanted to kill me as she yelled that Isabel was pregnant. I didn't believe it. How could she be so lucky to get pregnant on the first try? But if Laura wanted to hit me, she could. It would be a way to vent Isabel's anger. But then Tessa rushed out and shielded me, taking 2 solid punches from Laura. After all, we had spent a night together. Even though I was using Tessa, as a man, I couldn't bear to see her get hurt for me. I didn't want the Vance family to use their dirty tricks on Isabel and Laura, so I demanded that Laura apologize. But Isabel didn't understand my good intentions. Fortunately, Tessa was magnanimous and didn't get angry or hold a grudge. I didn't even stop to think about how Tessa knew Isabel was on her period. Because Tessa fainted again. When would these troublesome days end? I just wanted to get my revenge quickly, marry Isabel, and live happily ever after. Then, she would have a child or 2 for me. I couldn't dare to imagine such a beautiful life was just around the corner. The only tricky part would be dealing with the engagement with Tessa, but no matter how difficult, I could handle it. When I went to see Isabel again, I saw her shove Tessa to the ground. I was both happy and angry. I liked that Isabel was jealous over me. I was also annoyed that she was causing trouble. With that one push, I would have to spend a lot of energy placating Tessa again. I was even angrier that she had accepted Tessa's check. I had seen the drama of wealthy women fighting for favor with my own mother 100 times. Did Isabel think I was only worth $5 million? Was she planning to take the money and break up with me? In her dreams, she would never leave me in this lifetime. I tore up the check, and for the first time, I hit her. I quickly picked up Tessa and left. I couldn't bear to see the hurt in Isabel's eyes. I heard the sound of her heart breaking. That slap, I had only used a fraction of my strength. It hurt her face, but it was carved into my heart. Tessa was, as expected, angry because of Isabel. So hard to please. But it was true that Isabel was in the wrong. I cooperated with Tessa and publicly acknowledged Isabel's fault to the media. I hoped she would learn her lesson and not to offend a powerful family like the Vances before she was strong enough. I was there to support her. But Isabel was too willful. She actually took revenge and killed Tessa's families made through a botched surgery. I was furious. How could the Isabel I loved become so vicious? I was so disappointed. I told her to admit her mistake, but she just made excuses and blamed everything on Tessa. I knew she felt wronged, but there had to be a limit to her tantrums. Should she have said those vicious things? With such irrefutable evidence, how could I protect her? I decided to let her learn a hard lesson, to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. I stood her up and went to be with Tessa. I asked her if she had learned her lesson. Isabel's temper had grown. She actually blocked me. Even funnier, she said she wanted to call off the engagement. I had never thought that Isabel would actually leave me. Like a pouting child, I waited for Isabel to come and apologize. I never heard from her. I only heard of her death. From someone else. I couldn't even remember what I had done to her the last time we met. Oh, I had accused her of murder out of personal revenge. I had nailed her to a pillar of shame. I deserved to die. I sought revenge with a scorched earth policy, destroying my enemies even if it meant hurting myself. For my mother and for Isabel. But what was the use? My mother was dead and Isabel was dead. Even if I killed everyone, I couldn't bring back the people I loved most. Torturing Tessa brought me no joy, but I had to torture her. Otherwise, the hatred in my heart would never be appeased. When Tessa's uterus and children were removed, I didn't feel happy. Instead, I was in so much pain I could barely breathe. Once, Isabel had carried my child in her womb. To escape the torture, Tessa traded Isabel's phone for her freedom. I agreed. It was the last thing Isabel had left me. It was mine. Unsurprisingly, I unlocked it with my birthday. but it was like I had opened a Pandora's box of pain. The thousands of days and nights of Isabel's love for me felt like I was being slowly flayed alive. The person who had donated a kidney to me back then was my beloved Isabel. What had I done? Tears streamed down my face like a broken dam, but they couldn't wash away a single ounce of my pain and regret. I had a new headstone carved for Isabel. Even in death, she could only be my, Ethan Knight's, wife. Our child would be beside her. Kneeling before her grave, I finally learned that Isabel loved sunflowers and durian cake. I didn't dare to hope for her forgiveness, but I really missed her. I wanted to be with her. When I was rescued after a suicide attempt, Laura told me that as long as I was alive, Isabel would be alive. That's right. As long as I live, Isabel lives. 10 years ago, she had become a part of me, destined to live and die with me. I got a tattoo on my lower back, identical to Isabel's. I kneel before her grave every night, just begging for her to come to me in my dreams. I want to tell her in person that I love her. The end,